What's up everybody, it's RobinGaming here. So a couple of weeks ago I started this new mini-series of my top 25 games of all time, something that a lot of people requested me to do, and pretty much I decided to really cut it in 5 different parts where I can really go in depth on some of these games that I've played and that have had a huge impact on my life pretty much, right? And that's really what I once again want to point out. That's what this list is. It's not necessarily in any way a list based on quality of the games once again, so I'm sure there's gonna be a couple games mentioned in this part that will quality-wise maybe I can look at and be like, well, they're not maybe as good as some of the games mentioned in the previous part, but they simply left a bigger impact on me. And it's a list about purely, you know, nostalgia. Like, how do I look back at those games? How good are the memories that I have of them pretty much, right? And that's how I really ordered this list. So, with that being said, I'd say let's actually simply continue from where we left off, and that's at number 20. So, number 20 is gonna go to a game that I personally never expected really to be in a list like this, because I'm not a big RPG guy, and most of you will know that about me, but this is actually quite a hardcore RPG. It's Dragon Age Origins, and you know what the thing is with this game, I guess? It came out, I think, in 2009. I myself played it the year after 2010, where there was kind of this dry period going on, I guess, and this is a game that a lot of my friends had gotten, and I looked at it and I was like, well, I mean, let me just try one of these. I had never really played, I guess at that point, you know, some of the more hardcore RPGs, so I just wanted to kind of give it a shot, right? And in the end, I didn't really end up liking that game so much for its gameplay. It was more the story and the characters that I grew really attached to. It was of course, this medieval, Middle Ages kind of setting, very, you know, comparable to something like The Lord of the Rings, which you all know I really like. Where, you know, yeah, you're playing with like a warden, right, and you have all these knights and mages and different races and factions, and it's just like, it's a big epic adventure, I guess, that came to a great conclusion. And so I simply, I put that game, I think, on easy difficulty, really, for the most part. I didn't really like, you know, I just don't like games that are, yeah, these hardcore RPGs that are so much about strategy. Personally, I'm simply not a big fan of them, but I still really like that game for the story it told me, the conversations that I had, the choices that I made, really, and so I beat it a couple times through, got the Platinum Trophy. Dragon Age 2 I liked as well, because the gameplay was a little more fast-paced, I guess, and Inquisition I never really got around to, sadly, this generation. I still need to kind of give it a try, I guess, eventually. I liked the first 5 hours that I played of it, but then, you know, other games came in between, and I wasn't maybe feeling it as much yet at that point, so yeah, maybe eventually I'll get around to playing that. But Dragon Age Origins was an awesome experience that I still have, you know, amazing memories of. So yeah, number 19, this is a game that I think many of you will agree with me. I kind of was picking between number 2 and 4 in the franchise, but in the end I decided I had to pretty much go with Assassin's Creed 2. This is really what started it all, right? I mean, nowadays we're complaining at Ubisoft for all the typical Ubisoft open world games they make, but Assassin's Creed 2 really was the start of that. It was the first time you played a game like that, and at that point, obviously, it wasn't as boring yet or as repetitive in that way. It felt like something completely new and fresh, and obviously, that game is also a game that I really love for its setting, its story, and its soundtrack. It wasn't just about the gameplay, but it took place, of course, in the Italian Renaissance, and you had areas like Venice, I think, and Rome, I think, came in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but it was, yeah, Venice and a couple of other, Florence, a couple of other Italian cities. But man, I mean, that was an awesome story with Ezio, of course. It was the first Assassin's Creed game I played, also a little later in 2010. I think I even borrowed it from a friend of mine, because I wasn't really sure if I was gonna like the game that much, but I simply have great memories of that game, and especially, yeah, listening to the soundtrack again, hearing that play out, man, that was simply a very special setting. I really loved Assassin's Creed 4 as well, which I played a couple years ago on the PS4, but I guess that simply it being the, you know, 5th or 6th Assassin's Creed game that I had played already, it didn't have the same impact, right? So that's I guess, or, well, I mean, it really was a big surprise, but maybe not, yeah, just not the same impact as Assassin's Creed 2 still, which was simply the first one I played in the series, right? So, yeah, number 19, Assassin's Creed 2. So, number 18 should be a little bit of what's the right expression for that? Like a guilty pleasure type of game, I guess. A game I shouldn't really say out loud that I like that much, but really I'm not that ashamed of it at all. At number 18 I put DJ Hero 2. Yeah, this may seem really really stupid and surprising, but DJ Hero is actually like, you know, I was not a big Guitar Hero guy, and why? Because I myself already played the guitar, the actual guitar, and so, you know, I always said like I'd prefer playing real guitar compared to something like Guitar Hero, but I still, you know, could kind of understand why people like the game so much. Now, DJ Hero was something that I just randomly decided to pick up, where you got your own turntable and stuff, and it's actually not really my type of music that much, but it's simply this rhythm game that I don't necessarily have great memories of playing by myself. It was more playing it with, you know, my little brothers and stuff who also really liked that game. We had 2 of these turntables. We were playing it in co-op, and I just, once again, it's a list based on memories, and I have great memories playing this with my family and stuff, you know, and there were even some cool songs in there that were actually taken from like rock music, which is more my genre, and kind of blended in with other, you know, kind of tracks. So it did have its, you know, interesting and different aspects to it as well, where, you know, you don't necessarily need to enjoy the typical DJ music, I guess, that you would think is in a game like that, but yeah, it really is the great memories that I have of playing the game together with my family that made me decide to put this game at this spot. And this counts for both DJ Hero 1 and 2 pretty much, but the second game, I guess, was a little more expanded. Didn't, you know, maybe sell super well, because I think they kind of stopped making those games, because like Activision was kind of milking these games, right? I think the second game came out literally like a year, maybe even less than that, after the original had come out. So it was just unnecessary to milk the franchise like that. It never really works out, and you saw what it did with Guitar Hero, right? So, but still, a game I simply have great memories of. Now at number 17, I'm putting a first-person shooter that's actually a PC first-person shooter. I guess technically it was also on PS3 and 360. It's not really the platform where you want to be playing this on, pretty much. And that is Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or CSGO as many people like to simply call it. Yeah, I don't think many of you might know about this, but this is actually a game that I looked it up on Steam, and I have about 700 hours into the game. I got introduced to this game by my classmates. Basically, I had entered university, of course, the software engineering course that I did like 4 or 5 years ago, and all of my classmates were big PC guys. Now, obviously, I've never really, you know, been able to accept that so much as a console player myself, but they did introduce me to CSGO, and, you know, it was this game that we just played together, right? And it's all about that competitive matchmaking. It's a game that is very, very hardcore, where you gotta play the specific mode, which is kind of like comparable to like Search and Destroy in Call of Duty, I guess. But it's a game that's super strategic, that you play with your friends, you cooperate using headsets and stuff, and you have your ranks and everything like that. You can actually go down in ranks if you don't perform well. Very team-based, centered on winning games. It's not necessarily like the best-looking game, or there's nothing really to it, I guess, more than simply it's awesome gameplay that's very skill-based, where you don't see, you know, the crosshair of your gun going up when you're shooting guys. No, the recoil, you just have to imagine yourself and really time, you know, or pretty much, yeah, like shoot your guns according to your recoil, right? You really have to like do this all by yourself. It's very, very hardcore, but if you get good at it, and if you manage to get really good ranks in that game, then it's simply a blast to play with your friends and stuff, right? So I myself was, for those of you who do play CSGO, I myself was, I think, a Master Guardian 2, I guess, or Master Guardian Elite at this point, I guess, player, so that's pretty high up, and you know, yeah, it's simply a game I've had lots of fun with and put hundreds and hundreds of hours into, like I said. So, the final game I'll be talking about in this video is going to be number 16, and that's simply another shooter, but it's Battlefield 3. I remember so well about Battlefield 3 that it was kind of really overhyped even in 2011. From what I remember and from the websites and stuff that I looked at, this game was being called crazy things like, you know, first-person shooter 2.0. People were acting like this was going to be the second coming of Jesus Christ, I guess, really, right? And the funny thing is that Battlefield 3 was kind of like the one game, I guess, in a certain time, you know, period in 2011 when it came out, one of these games that was hyped up a lot even by me, but the one that actually kind of made it like come true, or made it happen, lived up to its expectations, because, you know, Uncharted 3 came out around that time, disappointed me quite a bit. Modern Warfare 3 came out at that time, disappointed me really heavily. Skyrim came out, which I myself really couldn't get into, even though it's a game loved by many, but I simply just ended up not really liking that game. And also my very first Elder Scrolls game, but Battlefield 3 was simply like epic to me. It was a game that had an awesome realistic graphical style to it, where the sound effects were so cool. This was one of my first Battlefield games that I really played, and although the console versions were a little limited with its like, 24 player battles I guess maximum, compared to the PC version that you always kept hearing about, which had, 64 player support, right? Still, it was a game that I also put hundreds of hours into. I still remember, some of these maps so well, like Operation Metro. I think anybody who's played Battlefield 3 loves that map. It was just like, yeah, great memories of that game, just a realistic feeling shooter, gritty but awesome to play, and yeah, simply one of the, one of my favorite first-person shooters of all time, I guess. So, yeah, that's kind of it, I guess, for this part. These were the number 20 until number 16 of my top 25 games of all time. In a couple of weeks, I'll be continuing this list, and I'll be talking about number 15 until number 11. So we're getting, we're working our way up, we're getting closer to the final spots of the list and my ultimate favorite games of all time. So, with that being said, I would like to know, of course, your favorite games in the comments, and I would like to really quickly remind you that you will get a week early access to these videos by becoming a Patreon supporter. So please, go and check me out on patreon.com/RobinGaming and decide hopefully to support me a little bit, because yeah, as a nice cool little reward, you get early access to all of these videos, just like all the people next to me who already support me on Patreon right now. So with that being said, thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and I can't wait to see you again in a couple of weeks with the next part. So for now, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.